So, welcome and thank you for joining. I know that your time is super valuable, and let me tell you a little bit more about what we are going to be discussing in the next 45 minutes. So, this number, 62%, that's how many employees globally are not engaged at work right now, not actively sabotaging, just present, doing the minimum, mentally somewhere else. And Gallup calls them quiet quitters. I call them the people who decided to leave 6 months ago but haven't told you yet. That's what this session is about, not engagement theory, not another framework. We're going to look at real data and from 20 million employees' voices and show you the signals that predict why people quit long before they hand in their resignation. My name is Ivan Palomino. I'm a behavioral science expert. With me are Tomo Urbanski and Andy Kacperski, who are the creators of Culturama. Between us, we sit on the largest work culture data set in the world, and today we are opening it up for you. Before we dive into the signals, let me frame why this matters in a language every board understands: money. $8.9 trillion. That's the global annual cost of low employee engagement. 9% of the global GDP. And to put that into perspective, that's larger than the GDP of every country on earth except the US and China. Now, there is some information that surprised me when I first saw some of the research. This research confirms, the MIT research confirms also our Culturama findings. They found that toxic culture, not pay, is 10.4 times more predictive of attrition than compensation. Compensation ranked 16 out of 172 factors. 16. And when Radio surveyed HR leaders across Europe, 82% say their number one retention challenge was lack of career progression. Not pay, compensation was cited only by 61% of people. So the uncomfortable truth is, in many companies, most of the retention budget is aimed at the wrong lever. We're spending on compensation fixes for what is fundamentally a culture and signals problem. Let me tell you a little bit more about these signals. So if culture is 10 times more important than pay, why aren't we catching it? Because the tools we use are designed to measure the past, not predict the future. When we use annual engagement surveys, you get one snapshot per year. If job security concerns a spike in March, your survey doesn't pick it up until November. By then, your best people have been interviewing for 9 months already. What about exit interviews? I call them autopsies, not diagnostics. By the time someone sits in one, they made the decision to leave 6 months earlier. And the reasons they give is better opportunity, higher pay, but these are socially acceptable answers. The real reasons, toxic manager, feeling insecure, feeling undervalued, are too risky to say on the way out of the door. What about the manager reports? Here's the irony. Gallup says managers account for 70% of the variance in engagement, but those same managers filter the bad news upwards. When an employee says, we are understaffed, that signal gets smooth, reframed, or buried before it reaches anyone senior in the organization. There is a good concept in behavioral science called the street light effect. You look for your keys under the street light, not because that's where you drop them, but because that's where the light is. That's what we do with retention. We measure what is easy to measure, not what is actually predictive. Now, talking about prediction, is there a way to do it? Tom, what's your thoughts about that?
Yes, I think we have a good message here. So imagine if instead of relying on stiff traditional surveys, you could listen to millions of employee voices across thousands of companies completely in real time. That's what Culturama does. It's an AI system that catches workplace problems early by analyzing unfiltered, everyday language at a massive scale. And we are looking here at a huge global data set. It's over 20 million employee voices across roughly 5,000 companies in 59 countries. We track 130 different workplace factors and have 6 full years of history for every single company. But here's what really sets us apart. We measure problems, not price. By focusing on complaints rather than the corporate fluff, we can spot sudden red flags and offer predictions that give you real ground level intelligence.
Tom, what I really want to know if the system allows you to spot real signals. So we are talking about signals. Can we get these signals from the system?
Absolutely. So let's look at the big picture. This data shows how secure employees feel at work, where 100% means they feel totally safe. Historically, this chart is wild. For 10 years leading up to 2023, these lines never dropped below 80. People felt safe in their jobs. That's why the massive crash at the start of 2023 was such a shock. Across tech, from software to hardware, employees' confidence just plummeted all at once. Things are stabilizing a bit now that we are in 2026, as you can see on the chart, but we are still way below what was just 4 years ago. We are literally living in the new era of job insecurity. But even with that gloomy picture, some companies managed to completely turn things around. And today we want to show you 2 success stories, Cisco and GEICO, and break down exactly how their leaders did it. So let's start with Cisco.
Tom, let me ask you something. So this data is the data coming from Culturama, right?
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
Okay.
That's from our system, and that's many years of history, as you can see. So let's start with the first success story, namely Cisco. Back in 2022, their job security peaked at 90, as you can see on the chart. Tech was basically booming. Management thought the high demand would last forever. Please remember, it was post-COVID time. But when buying slowed down, they were caught completely off guard. What followed was actually a very brutal drop. Sudden layoffs, a strict return to the office mandates, dragged employee confidence to an all-time low of 40. So imagine losing 50 points is really unprecedented. At first, management kept everyone in the dark, firing people out of the blue. But then they completely flipped their strategy and chose radical transparency. So instead of hiding behind corporate speak, leaders owned their own mistakes. They told employees exactly which teams were shrinking months before they were making any moves. On top of that, instead of firing people who lacked AI skills and paying premium for AI native replacements, Cisco decided to invest in the team they already had. So as you can see, the marker on this chart, they basically decided to invest in the team that they have and launch a program to reskill workers for AI and cloud roles. And so by replacing the fear of unknown with clear options, Cisco sparked a big recovery. You can see heading in 2026. Of course, it's not up to the levels that were before 2023, but still it's remarkable. Many companies haven't managed to do that.
So what you're saying is that the unsatisfaction from the employees already expressed way before through the system, before even the information about layoffs is public. So you can feel it so that you can do some action.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That is correct. That is absolutely correct. And that is even better to be seen on the next success story, and that is GEICO. So let's look at GEICO now. They used a totally different approach, but to the same great result. Please take into account that GEICO is an insurance giant from US, so probably not very well known to Europeans. Anyway, it's a big company, and notice that their drop didn't actually start with layoffs. So in 2022, management started cutting costs by closing regional offices and axis profit sharing program with employees. Then came the heavy micromanagement. This constant pressure caused employees' confidence to slide for over a year before anyone even lost their job. So essentially, they started to track very detailed metric about work performance. Then when a 6% layoff wave officially hit in late 2023, people were completely exhausted and anxious, sending confidence straight to rock bottom by mid-2024. To fix the trust issue, actually, GEICO stopped the surprise firings. Instead of looking outside for expensive talent, they focused heavily on internal mobility. They mapped out a very clear promotion tracks, expanded offices, and told employees exactly what skills they need to move up. Essentially, they made a promise to their staff. If you are willing to learn, your job here is safe. And thanks to that, by betting on their own people instead of replacing them, GEICO rebuilt trust, as you can see, and triggered sharp recovery we see today, 2026.
That's super interesting. But now I want to put a little bit my behavioral science glasses on and look a little bit smart. So what I have understood out of this core data that you have shown, Tom, is that there is 3 different signals. We have identified 3 that consistently appear in the data before attrition spikes. And each one maps directly to foundational theories in human psychology. This isn't just data, it is human behavior, but at a scale. There is the signal 1, the job security and anxiety. This sits at the second level of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, the safety level. When employees feel their job at risk, even if nothing has been announced, their brain shifts into threat detection mode. The amygdala activates, strategic thinking shuts down or is diminished. They become physically present, but cognitively operating in survival mode. And survival mode means one thing: scanning for escape routes. The signal shows up 4 to 6 months before visible turnover spikes. We just saw that in Cisco and GEICO. There is the second signal, perceived recruitment quality drop. This is kind of rooted in social identity theory. People derive part of their self-esteem from being part of a high-quality group, the special ones, the chosen ones. When they feel we are hiring the wrong people or the standards have dropped, it's not a complaint about hiring, it's a threat to their identity. High performers are especially sensitive to this. When the bar drops, they psychologically distance and then they physically leave. The signal number 3 is staffing level strain. Conservation of resources theory tells us that when people are chronically asked to do more with less, they deplete their psychological resources faster than that they can replenish them. And here's the critical part. It is not just about workload, it's about perceived inequity, unfairness. When your best performers see they're carrying a disproportionate share, they compare that ratio to what they could get somewhere else. Once that ratio tips, they're gone. And these are exactly the people you cannot afford to lose. So what we're saying is there is 3 signals, all measurable when you have the right tool, all visible in the data months before they show up in your turnover dashboard. Now, the question is what else can we get? Do we feel, do people are saying, the employees are saying before they quit, according to the Culturama data? Any ideas, Andy?
For sure, Ivan. And indeed, the 3 factors that you pointed out are great predictors that there is going to be some vulnerability in your organization in terms of employee turnover. What I have prepared for today is 2 companies' analysis to illustrate examples where we feel that in the last months, there were some unfortunate events pointing to the direction that there might be something wrong happening with the businesses. And the first example is Meta. So a hotly publicized case from the last few weeks. And if you don't live under a rock, you probably have heard that Meta decided to lay off 8,000 employees, and they used the advances in AI as a good excuse to do exactly that. And the news appeared around the second part of May this year. Looking at Culturama, you can get a very high-level picture of your culture as a company. So we have 7 different dimensions, ranging from strategy to opportunities that the employees enjoy. But the real killer feature of Culturama Live is that you can drill down into each one of those dimensions and go through additional levels of domains and factors and get to the ground floor and really learning what is happening at that particular organization. So today we're going to focus on business performance, which has been deteriorating at Meta over the last few months. But you might feel, okay, but I'm still scrolling through Instagram and Facebook. So how can the performance of the company be affected in any way, shape, or form if the ads data, ads money is coming in for the same stream that it was just last year? And the reason for that is that there is actually a very significant downfall in how workforce is viewed internally at the company. So we can see a very, very significant trend that started around mid-April. So bear in mind, 1 month before the public announcement, that people started feeling more and more negative about how the workforce is prepared to meet with the demands of the management. And the real reason, the root cause, is job security. And that started dwindling already at the turn of the years, 2025 to 2026. You can see that already back then, there was a significant negative trend, but the negative trend fully locked in the middle of April. And ever since, it has been a downslide and a very significant PR crisis on the management hands that they need to address as of now. But I think that the real interesting story is shown here, which is that if you look at the professionals, that deep is even stronger. So if you look at how the individual contributors are viewing their job security, there is an even more significant drop in the data that we're observing at Meta. So a very clear indicator and very early warning, hey, there is a challenge with job security that even expedited when the news hit the media and the entire world learned about the challenges at Meta. So let's shift gears and look at another example. This is slightly less publicized. This is a little office supply company in the US called Staples. And we're also focusing on business performance to get a side-by-side comparison and look at the other 2 factors that you mentioned, Ivan. So business performance of the surface of Staples looks pretty stable over the course of the last 36 weeks. And as in Meta's case, we have to drill down to get to the real truth. And this is where the challenge lays. So over the course of the last 2 months, we see a significant challenge in the workforce. And let's break this down into specific factors, shall we? Recruitment is one of the factors that you mentioned, and we saw that as early as January, there was a decreasing satisfaction with the recruitment process. And you guessed it, if we look at individual contributors, these are the people that are complaining about it the most, because they see, hey, we see the quality of the candidates coming into the organization, and it's not up to par. We don't feel that these are the people that can help us meet the demands. So what happens when that occurs, when the quality of the recruitment is not up to standard? Well, obviously, inevitably, you start seeing problems with staffing levels. And this is because you have the same amount of talent, dwindling amount of quality of recruitment, and you have the same, if not higher, demand. So inevitably, staffing levels starts to go down from around mid-March. And that in turn results in, you guessed it, lower retention rates. If we look at those, around the same time frame, we see that those start to dwindle and people are starting to notice, hey, there's something wrong happening on the organization. So the real question to management of these two companies is, can they spot those early signals well enough? And can they address the issues that are unveiling and stop those vulnerabilities for getting out of hand? And this is where tools like Culturama Live come into play, because they can give you those signals even before you can experience them or hear about them from your colleagues at work. This is where the power of AI comes in, and this is what allows us to detect those as early as possible and give you a strong signal, hey, we feel that there is some improvement to be done. And with that, let me hand over to you then. I'm wondering, how is it different from what the 10% of the companies do?
Yeah, because at the end of all, you're right that I mean, the solution doesn't come by spotting the problem. The solution comes by you spot the problem and you do something about it. Exactly. That's not enough. But the cool thing is that in Culturama we have also the ability to capture not only the problems but also the solutions. These solutions coming directly from the people in front of the problem, the ones who are in the biggest, who are the most in pain. But before I start talking a little bit about potential solutions, there are some companies who have been really looking forward towards this problem of how do we not measure the past, but more how do we do to prevent and find solutions from the predictive models that they have. And just an example, that there was IBM, for instance, they patented a predictive attrition program built on AI. That's similar to Culturama. It predicts who is going to quit with 95% accuracy, 6 months in advance, and it has saved them 300 million. Their former CEO, Ginny Rometty, put it perfectly. The best time to get an employee is before they go. Then there is another company similar to Costco, but more into the retail business, convenience stores. It's a convenience store chain with turnover at 1/5 of the industry average. So these guys, they know already how to manage this turnover that you always find in the retail business. They combine above market pay with profit sharing, cross training, and genuine empowerment. Remember that I told you it's not about the salary. It's about the fairness. So don't confuse the fact that they are paying much more. No, it's about the fairness. So they address autonomy, competence, and relatedness simultaneously, the 3 pillars of self-determination theory. Now, Costco, what I like about Costco is that I could get this information directly from Culturama. And it's something interesting. On the left, you see the actions Costco takes. On the right, the Culturama benchmark scores compared to the industry average, because what companies have to do is always be better than the average of the industry in order to be successful. So the average wage is above $30 an hour. That is scoring on this factor is 85.9, industry average 62, a 24-point gap. That's massive, but remember, it's not because they're paying more. It's more about that they feel that there is a fairness of how they're being treated, because this has been compounded with additional perks, like 90% plus of people are insurers. Costco scores 98, the industry scores 98, actually very close here, but insurance has become table stakes across retail. The promotion from within, and we have highlighted that it's very similar. Costco is at 85.7, industry at 87.4, again close, which tells you something important. Promotion from within alone isn't the differentiator. The 12-week supervisor training, Costco is at 94, industry has 92. So where is the real gap? It is in compensation and perceived fairness. Costco's biggest advantage isn't any single action. It is the combination of action. And the data shows it. And whenever there is something that is going wrong with Costco, we can easily spot it way before in Culturama because you get the feedback as fresh as possible. Look at Culturama live as something that is taking the measures in live streams. Like you're watching television, you are looking at what people are feeling about certain of the problems that you have in competition compared to the competition. And I wanted to give you some tips of what we have learned with the amount of companies that we have hosted, that we have worked with. And here's some actions that we have noticed that work in order to diminish the level of attrition. Here they are. The number one is replace these exit interviews with leading indicators. Institute monthly pulse checks on three things: job security, perception, recruitment quality, sentiment, and staffing level complaints. You don't need like a super sophisticated technology. You don't need for that specific. You can even do it like homemade, asking just these three questions. Ask every month, track over the times in order to feel what is going on and see the trends. By the time someone resigns, the decision was made months ago. Your job is to detect the decision, not the departure. The tip number two that I would give you is make the signals visible to leadership. Most of this data exists somewhere in your organization, in employee surveys, in Glassdoor reviews. And by the way, I'm astonished that companies are not using enough Glassdoor reviews because it's public data. In one-on-one conversations that managers are having, the problem is it is not reaching the people who can act on it. Build a simple dashboard. It can be a spreadsheet that answers one question. What are employees saying this month? If job security complaints are up 40% versus last quarter, that's not an HR metric. That's a board level alert because here's where the money is. Number three, act on the data. Don't just collect it. This is the hardest one. If staffing complaints are spiking in one department, don't wait for the Q4 planning cycle. Redistribute work this month. Freeze adjacent hiring to protect the team. The ROI is there, but only if you act when your data starts telling you. Now, what I want you to think today is there a way to make it easy? Because we people in human resources, we are not tech savvy. We don't want to deal with technology. And here's the cool thing. Culturama allows you to gather the data is one of the most engaging tools in order to extract information with conversations. So it is not about from 0 to 1, how are you feeling about the staffing level? It is more about tell me the story that is behind so that you have context and you're capable not only to have the problem described correctly, associated to something that you can do as an action, but it also gives you gives the opportunity to employees to gather their feedback and say, this is what you could do. And that is powerful. So what we are planning to do is for people attending or seeing this video is that we have the opportunity for 5 organizations attending to the session, the possibility to use our tool, Culturama Live, deploy with just as in a small scale, 20 employees for 3 weeks. So they will have access to AI-powered real-time chatbot. They will be able to capture the information. You will be able to be benchmark against the thousands of companies on today's retention signal. And we will give you a small diagnostic report with the top priority actions, not the description of the problem, actions too. At no cost, no commitment. And if you're interested in that, the application closes on the 30th of June because we're going to pick only 5 organizations. So if you are interested to do that, you can send me an email. You have my email, ivan@peoplecall.com, or you can connect with me in LinkedIn and ask me for this access, and I will give it to you. So you will have the opportunity to make it live with your real organization. So thank you very much for your time and